Brandon, hello, welcome. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on this show.
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well, and I'm glad to have you on. The point of this show is to get to know Schmoedown competitors a little bit more than what we do via matches and some of the interviews and stuff like that, and just get a sense of who you are as a person, Brandon, and what your interests are, and we'll wrap it up with the Schmoedown. Very interested, especially after finding out your degree that you have. We will get to that. That's very interesting stuff. But the name of the show is From Birth to Schmoedown. So, Brandon, Hanna, where were you born?
Sure, I was born in Danbury, Connecticut.
Danbury, Connecticut.
Danbury, Connecticut.
That sound. I mean, is it famous for something? I really don't know, but that just sounds familiar. Maybe it's just some a common type of a name for a town.
I know at one point a long time ago it was well known. It's called the Hat City. It was well known for supplying a large quantity of the world's hats, manufacturing hats back in the old days where they used mercury and all that crazy stuff.
Hmm.
I've seen it mentioned on like a couple TV shows. Actually, recently, the new Conjuring movie, The Devil Made Me Do It, that one, that takes place in that area. There's a couple courtroom scenes that supposedly, like, because it's based off of like a true story, but like supposedly takes place in the Danbury courthouse, and it like displayed it up on screen. And I was like watching it with Sabrina, and I was like, look, it said it right there. But yeah, no, it's I don't know if it's like it's not too well known, but
It has one of those names.
Yeah, it's got one of those
like
names.
all American kind of small town kind of names.
Exactly.
Now being you just mentioned the new Conjuring movie from that area, was that something as you were growing up like as a kid that was well known and circulated, or was it just kind of something that nobody really talked about much?
Yeah, it was kind of something nobody really talked about. I wasn't too familiar with the story until the recent movie came out. I remember something years ago, my dad had mentioned something. I was watching one of those like haunting shows on like the Discovery Channel or a channel like that, where it was just like all true story, like hauntings from places across America. And there was one I remembered, I think it was like Brookfield, Connecticut, which is the incident that the movie's based off of. And my dad said something about it. So I have like this like vague memory of knowing something happened. But I didn't know too much about it. It's just one of those things that was like kind of forgotten, even though looking back, at like the movie now and looking back at the history, it was like a world famous case. I had no idea.
Yeah. See, I can't think of anything. I'm from Ohio. I can't think of anything in my area. Uh, but even growing up as a kid, I was raised in Texas, and there was all kinds of stuff that happens in Texas. So that's a whole nother story.
One time, Mark Ellis actually did a comedy show at Western Connecticut State University, which is in Danbury. And I was just a fan still living in Connecticut at the time. I didn't even go to Western Connecticut, but I snuck in to see his comedy anyway.
Now, when you say you snuck in, does that mean you bought a ticket posing as a student, or you just snuck in and didn't pay at all and you weren't?
It was one of those things where it was free to students, but they weren't allowing outside people to walk in. And I kind of just showed up and I saw there was a student, probably like student government member. She was, taking people's tickets, like checking their like IDs and stuff. And she just like kind of like turned away for a second, and I just walked right past her very confidently, like I belonged, and nobody questioned anything.
That's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of sneaking into places, have you ever snuck into a movie theater before?
So I've never like actually like snuck into the theater. I've like always, bought a ticket, gone through the front door, but I do remember before I was of age, I bought a ticket to Transformers. I think it was Revenge of the Fallen to go see Tropic Thunder instead. So I've done that.
Yeah, I've never done that where I was underage and I got a ticket and then went to see a more adult movie. But the only thing I can remember is as a kid, my parents went to see some adult movie. I was supposed to see Crocodile Dundee 2, but instead I went to see Big, and they were not very happy about that. So, but what was the first movie that you saw in a movie theater? Do you remember?
That's a good question. My memory on it is a little fuzzy. I always want to say my earliest memory of being in a movie theater was seeing The Iron Giant. I think that's probably the first one that I could think of.
Hmm. You know,
But I'm sure there was one before it.
the Iron Giant is the Steven Spielberg. Am I correct?
No, I don't think he did. I could look it up really quick.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I
Okay.
think now I'm just thinking. The Iron Giant was in Ready Player One,
Yes.
and that's Steven Spielberg.
And Vin Diesel voices the Iron Giant. And
Okay.
yes, that Ready Player One is Spielberg.
Okay. Yeah, you said Iron Giant, and I'm like, I know what that is. I've never seen the movie, obviously, but I know what that is, and I'm just racking my brain. What is that from? I thought Steven Spielberg had something to do with it, kind of in a roundabout way. I guess I was right, but not really.
Roundabout way.
What movie do you think influenced you the most as a child, like pre-teen years? What movie do you think influenced you the most? It doesn't matter in what way it influenced you, but just influenced you.
Sure, that's a good question because I've obsessed over many movies in my younger years. There was, I'll always have a love for Star Wars. I was obsessed with Star Wars my whole life. But, there was also a period of time where Lord of the Rings kind of took over. And I remember being very excited about Lord of the Rings, buying a English to Elvish dictionary at one point, buying all the books, even though I didn't read really any of them. I think I read half of the Return of the King book and couldn't get all the way through it. It was a little above my reading level at the time, but I tried. But, I just, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. I was always a big Batman fan too.
Yeah.
Growing up, all those franchises. It's hard to pick one specific film. It was a lot of franchises when I was a kid that caught my attention.
Now you speak of as far as franchises being your draw as a child. For me, it was specific actors, because I remember I was so amazed that I would see someone playing this role. So in my mind, I didn't understand the concept of acting. So I'm like, that's who they are. And it's like this really nice, fun, like uncle type of a character. And then I see another movie that they're in later or before, but I see it after that, and it's them as a villain. And I'm just like, wait a minute. You can be two different kinds of people. That's when it hit me. And so for me, it was actors, if I liked an actor and I was like, I want to see what else they can be. If they can be a bad guy, I want to see if they can be a good guy, or I want to see if they can be an astronaut, and so on. I just absolutely loved that. But franchises, yeah. Now that I think about it, I gravitated towards some heavy franchises too. Now, if you had to pick between Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, since Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, we won't count The Hobbit, nothing against it, but we'll just stick with Lord of the Rings. If you had we'll let you pick your favorite Star Wars trilogy or the Lord of the Rings trilogy on an island for the rest of your life. Which would you pick?
That's good. I think, and it's not just because the Middle Earth category has been kinder to me in the Schmoedown, but I would have to go Lord of the Rings, simply because I consider Return of the King to be my favorite movie of all time. So I think I'd be foolish to choose to not have my favorite movie of all time with me on a deserted island.
That is very fair. And something else you might grow to appreciate later on is that, of course, if you got Lord of the Rings trilogy, you've got the extended version, so you've got longer movies, you've got more content, which kills more time. So in the long run, you're not just sitting around as much. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
What is your first memory as a child? Is that something you can recall?
First memory is tough. There's this old photo of me when I was like 2 years old, like holding like a fake plastic banana and just kind of like looking at it and being like just amazed by it. And I don't know if it's my mind playing tricks on me, but I could have sworn I in like it's very vague and blurry, but I could kind of like remember that moment. But it might also be because I've also looked back at that photograph so many times in my life. It's a false memory, but I don't know. I guess that particular moment is probably as far back as I can remember, whether or not it's real.
That's the real question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, and maybe and I'll ask your opinion on that a little bit later too, which all ties into your to your degree. I love it. I'm so stoked about that. Um, now, as children, we all want to be something when we grow up, and that changes so many times. Uh,
Mhm.
what's the first thing that you remember wanting to be when you grew up?
I loved, movies and, cartoons and all that stuff as a kid. I was always really into drawing. I was like a pretty decent drawer as a kid, sketching Dragon Ball Z characters and all that 100 times over. So I remember wanting to be a cartoonist at some point, wanting to like be the guy that like draws cartoons and stuff like that. Um, Later on, that kind of evolved into like a few different things where it was like, oh well, a more practical career where you get to like sketch stuff is like maybe you want to be an architect or something to that effect. And also for me at one point, oddly specific, but watching all those amazing special features on the Star Wars prequels DVDs, seeing how those movies came together, I was like, I want to be a stunt coordinator. I want to be the guy that teaches everyone how to do lightsaber fights. That sounds pretty cool. So those were like my earliest, that I could remember ideas of what I wanted to do when I grew up.
What level is your lightsaber or your lightsaber skill in at this point in time?
Um, I'd say it's I don't know if I could assign a number or to it. I know there's various different lightsaber forms if you want to get into Star Wars. I don't even know if it's canon. It might all be legends, all the lightsaber forms. But if you want to get into all that, I don't really know. But I say I got some work to do. I got some work to do. I'm pretty sure I'd end up like Qui-Gon Jinn at the end of the Phantom Menace if I tried to get
Oh,
into a real lightsaber fight.
oh no. Hey man, I would say that Maul ended up worse than Qui Gon. Even though Maul lived, Qui Gon died, yes, but he also came back as a Force ghost. So basically, he
Yeah.
could still hang out and have a good time without all the physicalities of life affecting him, right? But then Maul, man, I mean, that poor guy just got cut in half and then had spider legs and then now regular mechanical 2 legs. And I mean, woo, his life really went over the edge, no pun intended.
It was tough. It was a tough life. Qui-Gon might have gotten the better end of the deal. I think you're onto something.
Hey man, that's very rare. I'll take that as a win. Um, uh, now, what high school did you go to, and what was the mascot there?
Sure. So I actually, the state of Connecticut has a system of regional technical high schools where you can go and study a trade or some sort of technical field. So I went to one called Henry Abbott Technical High School, and our mascot was the Wolverines.
Nice.
I studied computer aided drafting and design there, which kind of like led me on my current career path.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, was it a campus type of an environment?
No, it was like like a normal high school that you like take the bus to every day. But it was regional, so there were kids coming in from towns and cities all over the county, and yeah, it was great. It kind of like piqued my interest because I was moving towns in between middle school and my freshman year of high school, and I didn't know if I wanted to go to this new high school where I didn't know anybody, and then There was this idea of going to a technical high school where it was you spend half the year learning regular academics the way like most high schools operate, and then the other half of the year learning whatever your trade is, whether it be me, where I did drafting, or manufacturing, automotive, auto body, electrical, plumbing, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, even hairdressing. And now I think they even have health sciences if you want to like move on to become a nurse. So a lot of cool stuff, and it seemed a little bit more exciting to me than going to a regular high school, and I'm glad I did it. Opened up a
Oh,
lot of doors and opportunities.
oh, for sure. And I mean, and that really, that's a good move too. If you're going to move anyway, and you're going to start with new people anyway, then you might as well start somewhere where everyone is starting with new people.
Exactly.
Maybe
Yeah,
it would lighten the experience for everyone and make it less awkward for everyone.
for sure.
Now, how much did, if at all, did these programs intertwine with each other? Like, for example, plumbing and electrical and like that kind of stuff. Like, if there are different classes that kind of go together in a profession, was there any crossover with those working together to understand more than just your field?
Sure. Sometimes, a lot of the trades, like that, like electrical and plumbing and HVAC and all that required work on homes. Sometimes, they had like work study programs at my school, but they also had programs where the students would get to go out to a real person's home and fix whatever plumbing or electrical issue that they may have. And it was free for the people that were getting the work done, knowing full well that it was students doing the work. So it could take an extended period of time. It could be, a little like mistakes could be made and the issues have to be corrected. So it was a great program that was beneficial for everybody. And, sometimes you had two different trades working on the same house, right? So sometimes they had to learn to work together, you know, um, which happens in the real world, as well. Uh, but like for me personally, being in computer aided drafting and design, that kind of entails making blueprints and drawings for machined parts that you want to manufacture. And literally right across the hall was the manufacturing shop. And, I could design something in a CAD package, 3D model it, make a drawing for it. I could walk it across the hallway and there'd be students in manufacturing that could throw a hunk of metal on the machine and make the thing that I designed. And so there was like cooperation there as well. So stuff like that, it was whenever there was an opportunity to collaborate with other students in different fields of study, it was always encouraged.
Yeah. And I can imagine with the diverse group of people like that, diverse interests, as far as, construction and versus technical work or hairdressing, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, you have to have some experiences having met different people. Let me just ask you flat out, Brandon, what is the most trouble you ever got into in your teen years, like before you exited high school?
Hmm. Honestly, I don't know if I can think of really anything. I was definitely not a troublemaker growing up. I uh, I always played it safe, you know. So I'm like, what's the worst trouble that I really got into? Was probably not much. I got detention a good number of times. I was known for getting detention. I was known for in especially middle school. I got detention once in high school, but especially in middle school, I got detention a lot. I was just known for like goofing off and uh, defying the teacher on stupid stuff to get me cost me a lunch one day, and I had to have lunch in their classroom or something stupid like that. That's about it. Harmless, really, really harmless, low level stuff.
Right.
I always played it safe. I was a little bit of a square, I guess.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I could have used being a little more square on the edges growing up. We like you said, we had like in school detention, then we had after
Mhm.
school 30-minute or an hour detention, then we had Saturday school. which was like 4 hours in the morning until noon or 1 o'clock. And yeah, I got kicked out of Saturday school and had to go back the next Saturday. And then that next Saturday, I showed up late and they wouldn't let me attend, and I had to go back the next Saturday. So
Oh no.
yeah, it happens. But I don't know. I'm just kind of curious, Brandon. And forgive me, but you're a handsome guy. There had to be some ladies over the years that you tried to impress. Is there anything that what's the most length or the most outstanding gesture that you've gone to? Maybe not to let someone that know that you're interested, but to impress them and maybe hope to catch their eye.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm throwing you some curveballs that I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Like one single gesture, or like a series of small gestures, or
Yeah, it could be. That's even better, because then you're laying some foundation. You maybe start feeling out the groundwork. Then you start laying some foundation and building up a little bit, and hopefully she'll end up picking out the siding for the house y'all build together. That's how I always thought about it.
I did a lot of that with Sabrina early on, in our friendship before we started dating. Just always being there, always being around. She had one time a issue at work where there was a cockroach there, and I drove over, and I think I'm like, did I end up catching the cockroach? I did end up catching the cockroach. It was hiding in the bathroom. I got the cockroach. Stuff like that. One time we were just hanging out and her roommate called and was like, oh, does Brandon know anything about hanging up curtain rods? And I was like, yeah, I can go do that. It was my first time ever doing it. I figured it out. They had a little tiny pink power drill that I had to try to work with, and it was a very difficult. The next day I went out, I bought myself an actual power drill. There you go. So and then I used that to hang up a few more things in the apartment afterwards, stuff like that.
Dude, let's be real. If buying a power tool for a gal, dude, if that's not a great romantic gesture, I honestly don't know what is, man. Let's be real. But I have oh, go ahead.
Oh, sure. No, well, I was just gonna say, that was great. I remember I texted my dad and I was like, hey, I bought my first power drill today. I'm officially a man. And there was some jokes there, but also like really small stuff too. Like we'd be talking on the phone and she'd be like, oh, I just got this pulled pork that was like, one of my roommates has a food delivery service, and like she's out of town and the food got delivered here, and she said that I could eat it, but there's no barbecue sauce for the pulled pork, and I really wish I would have some coffee. And then I just like randomly showed up at her apartment with some instant coffee and a thing of barbecue sauce.
Man, I could really use some Mountain Dew. I'll give you my address after we're done.
All right, man, you got it. I want to impress you. Let's go.
Man, you're making my heart flutter here. No, I do. I think that's all very sweet, and I got to know two things about the cockroach story though. Sure. One, was it a catch and release or was it a kill?
Oh, I killed it. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering because you said caught it, and I was just wondering, did that mean you caught it and let it go?
I still have the murder weapon, aka the Raid instant kill spray that I actually used in my Robert Parker promo. By the way, for that match. So I still got that. I actually killed a cockroach with it last week. It was big one outside the apartment. Couldn't have that.
And when you drove over there to dispose of that cockroach, how long was that drive?
Not too bad. Probably like 15 minutes.
Okay.
20 max if it's bad traffic. I don't remember what the traffic was like that day.
Yeah. See, I always find it interesting, you city folk, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just I live in the country. I live in rural America. I want to go to my friend's house. It takes me 45 minutes one way to get there. So that's my situation in life.
Some parts of Connecticut are like that. I'm familiar. Driving to my aunt's house. She lives in the middle of the frickin' woods. takes a while.
Oh, I can't imagine how beautiful it is up there. I've never been to the Northeast, but I've always wanted to. Well, is Connecticut? It's considered Northeast, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's part of New England. It's Northeast for sure.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now after you go to school and it's time, well, did you take a break? A lot of people take a break before they decide what they want to do, or were you just ready to go? What was that like? You get out of school, are you ready for college? If so, what do you do? If not, what do you do?
Yeah, I was just ready to go. Being in the computer aided drafting and design trade, it's very, very closely tied in with mechanical engineering. And, I realized that's what I wanted to do. I uh, was watching, I used to watch a lot of documentaries on like Science Channel and Discovery Channel, stuff like that, particularly about space and the Apollo space program. And I became really into that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a mechanical engineer. I want to work in aerospace. I want to build stuff that goes into outer space. And that's what really drives me. That's what I'm really passionate about. And fortunately, my senior year of high school, I was doing the work study program that I mentioned earlier, where I got to go to work a few days out of the school week instead of going to school, and I would get credit for that. And it was with a really incredible company that did exactly that, that worked in aerospace. And I just jumped right into it. I enrolled in college from my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I was interning at this same company, and that was it.
Hmm. You mentioned the air in space, flying. So I must ask you, me being from Ohio, there's been a long debate about the Wright brothers, and does Ohio, or is it North or South Carolina? I can't remember, but I always say the Carolinas and the Dakotas because I just can't remember which is which for things. Little insight into my thinking there. Hey, at least I know what I'm talking about. But do you have an opinion? Can you settle this right now? Who owns the rights to the Wright brothers and can claim the invention of flight? Ohio or whichever Carolina it is. And please don't let the way I phrase that sway your answer.
Oh no, it was that Ken Griffey Jr. Cincinnati Reds jersey behind you. No, I don't think you have a bias in this at all. No, actually, I don't know. I haven't read anything about the Wright brothers probably since middle school, so I couldn't really tell you who has ownership to their success either way.
Growing up in school, it was never a big issue or anything, but it would be talked about sometimes as far as, the debate of Ohio and Carolina and all that. But I don't know, we never got into that specific debate. We were never given details. We were just always told flat out that Ohio is the birthplace of flight. We were never given the alternate reasons why it would not be here. But I don't know. You said flight, and I was like, man, maybe Brandon he can settle this debate for the entire country once and for all. No,
Nope. Sorry.
nah, that's all right. But you did go on to college, and you got your bachelor of science. I'm sorry, in medical, bachelor of science in mechanical engineering. What college did you attend?
Yeah, I actually attended. It's not a very well-known school, Central Connecticut State University. So it's obviously a state university. I had some options. I could have gone to UConn. I also got accepted to University of New Haven, which is obviously in New Haven, Connecticut. And I had a few other options out there, but for me, I wanted to go somewhere that was commutable, so I can still live at home, save some money on room and board because that's very expensive. And yeah, it was a state funded school, so it was affordable tuition. And honestly, with all that being said, I got a great education there. I'm very proud of the mechanical engineering education that I got at CCSU, home of the Blue Devils. I'm very proud of it. It was it's a smaller school. It's known as a commuter school, but it's a smaller classroom sizes, so you get more one-on-one time with the professors and your fellow students. And it's being the type of school that it is, it's students that really want to be there. It's not students just going to college for the sake of it, or because their parents force them to go to the school that they went to, or how it can go. Sometimes it was a school for even sometimes there were older students there who were maybe trying out a second degree for a new career later on in life. It was a great environment to be in. And even though we didn't have the funding for like really cool toys, and like really fancy machinery and all kinds of fun engineering programs that they might have at some larger schools, the actual education itself was very worthwhile. And I'm very happy that I went there.
And how many years does it take to earn that degree that you have?
Yeah, I did it in 4 years. It's typically, if you don't do any like summer classes, it's typically expected to take like 4.5 years, that particular program. But I knocked off some classes over the course of the summer a few times.
Yeah, might as well, man.
Yeah.
Get that wrapped up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I took some community college classes in Dayton, Ohio, and I mean, nothing ever came from it as far as I didn't continue on to get a degree in anything, but I really enjoyed what I took. And I was taking stuff like English, like writing and math and stuff like that. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had a good time and I did good. And you're right that it is a great environment, man. It's a really nice atmosphere. And I did this in my later years, so I was one of those older folks in my mid 30s, early to mid 30s, testing out the waters of community college. It was a lot of fun, but I don't know, man. I could never tough it out for 4 years to get a degree. That just ain't in me, man. So definitely major kudos to you. But what under this umbrella of mechanical engineering, what is your favorite thing as far as like what piques your interest the most?
Sure. I mean, definitely anything space related. Like I said, I was inspired by watching documentaries on the Apollo space program. There's actually a great documentary series that I have on DVD. It's called Moon Machines, and it's all about the Apollo space program and the moon landings, but from the perspective of the engineers and how they were able to achieve everything that they did. And that stuff just truly like it's what I want to do. And I'm fortunate in my career I've gotten to spend a decent part of it working on space related programs. And that's what really excites me. Just because that's like not to be a cliche with Star Trek, but that's the final frontier, man. That we are a species of explorers. And let's go out and like let's explore the universe. We um we have the capabilities to become a multi-planetary species. Well, let's go colonize the moon and colonize Mars, and see, like, how far we can go. Why not? It's inspiring. The space program, they had a lot of political reasons behind it. It was between the United States and the Soviet Union, each trying to prove to the other that they had the best technical capabilities. Because if you could land a man on the moon, you could definitely launch a nuclear bomb. You know what I mean? That was really what it was all about. It was a showing of force. But at the same time, there was so much amazing things that came out of it, and it brought a lot of people together. Um, it was like a truly incredible thing. And just all I get to do is see it through the lens of documentaries and books and articles that I find. But it truly was something really cool to me. Just doing something that you know 100 years ago people thought was impossible. Even 100 years ago today, if you told people that like 40 years from then they were going to land people on the moon, they would have been like, what, are you crazy? There's still towns in this country where people are riding around a horse and buggy, and you're telling me we're going to land on the moon in my lifetime? I mean, it's just remarkable. It's inspiring. It's great. I love it.
And we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about the moon and some theory stuff. But you had brought up the space being the final frontier. Now, there's something that bothers me, and maybe you can help me understand. Because I mean, I've had people try to. I mean, I guess I understand the surface reason, but I just still kind of don't understand. But I'll explain here. Now, we have so much of our ocean depths that we have no idea what is down there, none whatsoever. Yet we can put a rover on Mars and control it by radio controller, whatever it is. We can control it from Earth, okay? Now, I've been told it has to do with pressure and all this stuff, but I still can't wrap my head around the fact that we can control something from Earth on Mars, but we can't somehow build something to get to the bottom of our own oceans. Now, can you help me understand, like, why exactly we can't go down to certain lengths or depths and find out what's down there? And is there any way we can? Is there even anybody working on this still, or that they just given up and just moving on to Mars?
Well, I think you said it yourself, is the amount of pressure at the bottom of the ocean is so significant. I mean, you think about it, it's all of that water, the miles and miles and miles of water above you is sitting on top of you, and you have the weight of all that water on top of you. The pressure is so immense to build anything that can withstand that amount of pressure and transmit a signal back up to the surface with like a video feed or photos, and it's also in pitch dark. It's completely black. You don't know where you're going, completely blind in somewhere where the slightest mishap, whatever submarine or rover you try to put at the bottom of the ocean, is just going to get crushed.
Man.
So it is a little easier to send something to Mars.
Is there anything that we can do that you can think of? Like, or I mean, is it just like we pretty much might as well just give up and submit and just submit, or not submit, but you know what I'm saying? I'm in a loss here with all this stuff. I just don't get it, Brandon. But is there any hope at all, do you think, or is it just, should we just let it go and just accept it?
There's a saying that used to be above like the entryway of the mechanical engineering department at my old company. It said nothing is impossible for the engineer. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Nothing's impossible for the engineer. Someone someday will probably figure it out. And there's people working on it. There's people working on ocean exploration for sure. But those are different people from the ones that are working on space exploration. Space exploration is, at least to Mars, is a little easier. There's the I'll say like the physics checks out. There's we know more what we're dealing with.
Right. Which is all fair. It's just, to me, that's like just it's just the biggest mystery to me. It's our own planet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We can see mountains on another planet, but we don't know what's in the oceans on our own planet. And my imagination just goes absolutely wild thinking of what could possibly be down there as far as creatures or old civilizations. You just never know. But going back to space, now I'll just ask you, did we land on the moon?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then the Earth is not flat, right?
No, it is not flat. It is spherical. It is completely round.
I'm under that belief as well, but I mean, I've had people tell me otherwise, and I'm just like, dude, no way. Are you serious?
As someone who has worked in space as an engineer, I will say, that saying is true, that it would have been significantly harder to fake it than it was to just go to the moon.
That's great. And you had said something about colonizing the moon.
Mhm.
From your knowledge and your of what you understand, uh, is it something that we could have already done by now? Is it something that would be at least fairly simple to do?
Yeah, I'd say so. If we kept on that trajectory of, what we were doing with sending astronauts to the moon, it's certainly possible. But it all comes down to, what do we want to spend our money on? We had, sent astronauts to the moon and back a handful of times, and by then it was like, all right, well, we've already done what we needed to do. We've the ultimate goal from a political perspective, like I said, was that showing of force to the Soviet Union. Like, check that off the list. Um, do we really need to keep sending people to the moon? Do we need to colonize it? It's like, oh, probably not. And so they kind of like cut back. And I'm sure there was a lot of other reasons that we're not privy to, or that I don't even know about. Maybe I haven't fully researched all aspects of the situation, but that's my basic understanding. So, you know, but now we're getting to a point again where it's like, all right, like we've got these incredible rovers on Mars. We have, you know, um, Elon Musk with SpaceX and now Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin. And there's these private space companies that are making space travel more affordable because, we used to have it be completely government funded, these giant rockets that cost so much money and that went up into space once and then that was it. They were done. And so we have now SpaceX and a few other companies working on reusable rockets where the rockets go up into space and they come back down. And all you got to do is hook them up with some more fuel and they can go again. And that saves us a significant amount of cost all on its own. And, privatizing some of the space stuff, there's a lot of bureaucratic blue tape that they don't necessarily have to go through, and they can cut a few corners here or there, safely, of course, not putting anyone's lives in danger. So it's a completely different game now. It's completely different, and there's excitement in it again because, like, think what you want about Elon Musk when you have a guy with that much wealth and that many resources saying, I'm going to send people to Mars. It's like, okay, I mean, well, bro, it's your company. Like, yes, he's working with NASA, but it's not like, Congress having to sit down and figure out how they're going to divvy up funds. It's like, well, like Elon Musk is like, I got the capital. I'm going to start working on this. I'm going to do this. So it's a completely different game than it was in like the 1970s. Everything's completely changed, and there's excitement about space exploration and space travel again. And there is that competitive nature, I think, too, between various different companies and various different space agencies. And people are trying to get to the moon. People are trying to get to Mars. And there's even, like I said, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, there's even friendly competition there between their two companies trying to win certain contracts and all that. So it's a lot. And, I'm not even like, let me say, like, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in any of this, especially the whole political corporate aspect of it. I'm just an engineer. I'm just the guy that, is a piece of the puzzle.
Right, right. Now let's run through some theories and some questions about space. Let's start with sticking with the moon here real quick, because I just watched a couple videos on this a few weeks ago. I honestly had no idea this theory was even out there, that the moon is hollow. Are you familiar with this theory?
I am not familiar with a hollow moon theory. I know there's a lot about like the hollow earth. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard about that. We've seen it in a couple movies, especially recently. Mild spoilers for Godzilla versus Kong. They talk about the hollow earth. There's it's all kind of nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense,
All
but
right.
it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love this kind of stuff. Now what about the dark side of the moon? Because I mean, it's known we see one side of the moon at all times. So what's going on that other side? There's a lot of speculation, and I'm not going to go into the crazy, Nazis on the Moon movie, which is a great movie and very entertaining. Um, but there are theories and ideas that there could be bases on the other side of Mars, or on the dark side of the Moon. Have you heard any insight to that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's any merit to that either. That would be one hell of a conspiracy. There's, so many different space agencies that have satellites and rovers and all that kind of stuff that have gone to the moon in recent years. So, you know, it's for all the countries and space agencies to be in on that secret, somebody would have ratted somebody out. I feel like we have pictures of the dark side of the moon. It just because like from here on Earth we can't see that other side because it's always the same side of the moon facing us. We have satellite imagery of the other side. It does exist.
Well,
And
but how do we know that though? I'm kidding. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Um, I just made myself laugh at myself. That was absolutely absurd.
sorry. As an aspiring science communicator myself, I feel obligated to give the most logical, sincere answer I can give.
Um, how do you feel about extraterrestrial life? I mean, because there's a lot of space out there, and it'd be an awful waste of it if there was only us in it. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I believe that there is life out in the universe beyond us. I think there is just when you break it all down, there are billions and billions of inhabitable planets in that Goldilocks region of their solar systems that we like to call it. Like that's where Earth is in our solar system. In that Goldilocks region where it's not too hot, not too cold, it's just right, and everything kind of works harmoniously together to be a planet that can sustain life. So there's billions of planets like that out in the universe. The universe is infinitely big. There's billions of planets just like Earth. None of them within our near reach, but they are out there. So for me, I like it's just a mathematical impossibility for there not to be life out there. There has to be other life out there. Like when you look at the numbers, it's like there has to be life out there. Just has to be. The odds of all those inhabitable planets being out there and none of them having life is like so astronomically low. The probability doesn't add up.
Now, what do you think the odds are that they are advanced enough that they have visited us?
See, that's a little trickier to say, there's interesting like UFO conspiracy stories, some stuff totally ridiculous. But I'll say the even the closest they would have to be a species capable of having like Star Trek warp drive, where they can bend space and essentially travel faster than the speed of light. Because even at light speed, it would no one in their lifetime would be able to travel to the next habitable planet. It's just so far away. The closest one is so far away. Even if you travel at the speed of light, which is the universal speed limit, you wouldn't make it there. So they would have to have some sort of warp capabilities where they can bend space and time to travel vast distances, just like Star Trek. So I don't know. It's tough to say.
Now, obviously, you have a scientific and mathematical mind. With your scientific and mathematical mind, how do you feel about supernatural type things? I just, and that encompasses everything. Not, I'm not talking. Obviously, I'm not talking like the show Supernatural, but just supernatural as a general kind of a thing.
Sure, I really like enjoy those types of movies that deal with the supernatural. Like we talked about The Conjuring earlier. I love all of that stuff. I don't necessarily believe in it. I'm truly a man of science and logic and reason. So I have to be a skeptic, and being a skeptic doesn't have the negative connotation that I think a lot of people feel that it does. For example, you could be a believer and a skeptic at the same time. And I'll bring back the Conjuring movies as an example. When you watch that first Conjuring movie, Ed and Lorraine Warren, when they're, called to people's houses to investigate paranormal activity in those films, their immediate thing is like, okay, what's the most logical reason that they're experiencing whatever's going on in this house? Like, your pipes make this noise, or like, like he's kind of like a handyman. He's a jack of all trades. He knows about plumbing and electrical and building construction and all that stuff, so he can go, oh yeah, it's your pipes doing this thing. Like, you got to be a skeptic first, rule out all of the logical explanations for something, and if your quote unquote paranormal activity is still happening, then it's like, okay, something weird is happening here. And that's kind of in those movies where they are like, yeah, it's definitely a ghost, definitely haunted. For me, like I said, I don't really believe in it. So for me, when you get to that point where you've ruled out all the logical explanations and you still got weird stuff happening, it's like, all right, there's weird stuff happening. I can't explain it. I'm not for sure say it's gonna say it's something supernatural or paranormal, but there is something weird going on. And I've actually stayed 4 times now at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, and that is the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. It's very commercialized now, but there was a time where it was considered to be the second most haunted hotel in all of the United States. As a fan of Stephen King and The Shining and all that, and obviously I'm into all this stuff. I think it's fun, which is why I'm into it, even though I don't necessarily believe in it. So it's fun to like go to a haunted hotel and stay and see what happens. And I was most recently there. Went with Sabrina for her birthday last year, and we stayed in the second most haunted room in the hotel, and it's got a ghost in it supposedly that's known for groping women, pulling on their hair, touching people. And I woke up in the middle of the night to like something touching my leg, and it was a very weird experience because I felt it woke me up, and I was like, that was probably just like the bed sheet or something, whatever. Like, but now I'm awake and there's nothing on my leg, no bed sheet, nothing. And I feel a tap on my leg. Like, it was like this. It was like that distinct of a tap on my leg afterwards. And I leapt up in the bed. And it was just a crazy experience. I can't explain it. It could have been a number of things, but it's fun to talk about and say that I had a experience with a ghost. And there's been some other weird stuff that's happened at that hotel. The fourth floor in particular, back in the day, before the hotel was haunted, was known for where all the children would stay when their parents would come to this hotel to spend their vacations. And a lot of sick children during like a time of like, I think like tuberculosis and stuff like that ended up dying on that floor, I believe. And so it's known for being haunted by children. And my first time ever staying there, my dad heard children running and playing and kicking food trays in the hallway. And he's not a believer either. So he's like, he wasn't even scared. He was just annoyed. He's like, oh, these kids are keeping me awake. They're running and laughing and playing and kicking trays. And he's like, I'm going to go down to the front desk and complain. And they laughed at him. They were like, no, like this happens all the time. He's like, Mr. Hanna, not only are you the only people staying on the fourth floor, but your children are the only children in the entire hotel.
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So weird stuff like that. I can't explain it, but it's fun. I'll say that. It's fun.
That's great. Now, obviously, you're a big fan of movies, and which is why one of the reasons, at least, you're in the movie trivia Schmoedown. Now, how did you first become aware of Christian Hart and Mark Ellis?
I just spilled some water. Excuse me.
Fine.
Oh, that was silly of me. So yeah, how did I first become aware of Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis? Like around that time where like movie YouTubers was starting to become a thing, I had caught on to Jeremy Johns, a little bit. And through watching his movie reviews, I ended up finding the Schmoes, and they did like some crossover stuff together, like the U Reviewers Awards, I think they called it. They did it a few years in a row. And so like they did some stuff together, the Schmoes and Jeremy Johns. And so I started watching the Schmoes stuff, and then I became aware of the Schmoes Know movie show that they were doing every week. And that show is so good, back in its day. I definitely miss that show. That show was so much fun to watch and listen to every week. And I was also watching AMC Movie Talk at the time, and one day the Schmoes come on AMC Movie Talk, and AMC Movie Talk becomes Collider Movie Talk, and Mark and Christian and everyone become staples over at Collider, and it just kind of like all worked out where all these things that I was watching separately all kind of came together under one roof. And I've been a fan ever since. I've been a fan of the Schmoedown since the very first match that they ever did over at the AfterBuzz TV studios. And yeah, I've just been a fan for a very long time. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to weasel my way into this crazy world.
Yeah, and how did that come about? Like the initial idea of you being in the Schmoedown?
Sure, yeah. So I had basically I wasn't even living out in California yet. I was out here on business travel, and I would eventually a few months later transfer out here within my company. But I just kind of on a whim one day went to Los Angeles Comic Con, and they had the Schmoedown panel there at Los Angeles Comic Con. And, I bumped into my friend Raul Rodriguez, who I had already bumped to a number of times, bumped into him at the Collider screening at the ArcLight for Back to the Future. I ran into him. They had Shaun of the Dead playing at the Greek Theater. I saw him then, and now I bumped into him a third time, ran all three times completely randomly at Los Angeles Comic Con. And I was like, all right, like, this is crazy. Like, we should probably just start hanging out and being friends. But he was also there with his friend, who is known to you guys as Janine the Machine. And that's the first day that I met Janine, and we all went to the Schmoedown panel together. And a few months later, Janine was in the Schmoedown herself. And when I did make the move out to California, she started inviting me along to tapings where she was competing. And, through that, I started meeting everybody over at Collider and involved with the Schmoedown. And I got to a point where I could just go to tapings on my own, whether or not Janine was competing. And slowly but surely worked my way up to a point where I started working as a production assistant on the Schmoedown, doing all kinds of work behind the scenes, camera operating, microphone operating, cleaning the desk. There's a photo somewhere of me spraying down the desk in the Collider studio and wiping it down, all kinds of stuff. Every single job behind the scenes of the Schmoedown, you name it. I've even done a little bit of question writing at some point. Yeah. So, and then, once I was on that path, um, Janine actually recommended to Christian that I compete in the Inner Geekdom League, and they were looking for new competitors at the time. And he booked me that match, that fatal four-way between Chance, Chandru, and Keaton Markey. And the rest is history. And that entire first season that I competed in the Schmoedown, I was wearing multiple hats, where I was literally competing, wearing my whole suit and tie get up, and then having to work behind the camera the rest of the day. I would take my jacket off, but I would still have the tie and collared shirt on and everything, operating the cameras. So it was a lot of work, a lot of fun, and yeah. So now this is what, my third season as a Schmoedown competitor now. It is crazy. Something that I literally was listening to the audio podcast version of the Schmoes Know on a drive one day, and they were doing the trivia, and I was like playing along, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I'd like to do this someday. And here I am all these years later.
That's great. Now in the Schmoedown, what has been your most enjoyable match? Maybe even one you didn't win, but I'm talking on a level of just you had a good
Oh,
time.
I had a good. I mean, the first. It's hard to beat the first match ever, especially because I won. I won on a Star Trek 5-pointer, something I knew nothing about prior to competing in the Schmoedown. I made myself a Star Trek expert because I knew nothing about it, and so that was really a gratifying experience to win on that, and to beat Chance and Chandru at the time, who are now like two of like the number one contenders, and Chandru, former champion, and all that. So, I mean, it's hard to beat the first time, especially because I won. And even though it has a little asterisk next to it because it was a 4-way match, I did break the points record in my debut match at the time. So I'll always have that. The match against Emily Rose Jacobson was a lot of fun too. I was really trying to do the whole character thing, and I had that great moment where they asked me my 2-point question for the win, and I had my little hit list there with everyone's names crossed off and her name written on there. And I heard the question. I was like, all right, I know the answer to this one. I crossed her name off, showed it to the camera, and said the answer. And that was like a fun character moment for me. Be this like new heel and go on to like have that little bit of storyline with like the horsemen and the family and everything. That was a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. Obviously all the wins really stand out to me. This match against Eric Zipper, being 6 points down going into round 3 and winning in 9 rounds of sudden death, that was insane. But I don't know. I think I have to go back to nothing's gonna beat probably that first match ever, being in the Schmoedown and winning it. So
Yeah, that's a great memory to have. It's
mhm.
like a debut MLB player or hitting a home run in his first game. Hell of a debut. I do have one more question here before we start to wrap this up, Brandon. As you
Sure.
said, you worked behind the scenes production of Schmoedown. Now you're a competitor. You did have one match where you managed Mr. Ken Knapsack. So you've dipped your toes in 3 areas of the Schmoedown. I'm just curious though, as you look toward your future, obviously, well, not obviously, I don't know, but I would assume that you have a desire to compete for quite some time. Have you thought about anything else beyond competition, such as managing or sitting the desk? Anything else? I mean, you've covered other areas, so has there been other areas of the Schmoedown that you'd like to give a go?
Sure. I had a lot of fun managing Ken Knapsack, and I would love to manage again, even if it's like, because I'm not ready to hang it up and stop competing right now. So I don't know if I want to be a manager full time, but if there was an opportunity to manage a match here or there, I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think being at the desk too is a challenge that I would love to take on. I know it's a lot of work, and it could be quite the transition for people going from competitor to being on the desk. But maybe at some point in the future, especially you know in my time at AfterBuzz TV and Popcorn Talk Network, and even my own YouTube channel, I'm really working on being a good host and being a good on-camera personality. And so, being on the desk would be a really great way to continue to work on everything that I've learned and developed, and show off what I've learned in my very early like hosting career as well. So I'm open to all of it, man. I love all aspects of the Schmoedown.
Yeah. It's been great to get to know more about you, about some of your upbringing, and your interest outside of the Schmoedown. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. Now, in honor of the great John Lipton from Inside the Actors Studio, I'm going to finish up this interview here with you, asking you the 10 questions that he would ask at the end of his interviews. So, Mr. Hanna, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word. Oh man, I don't know. My favorite word. Clock's ticking here, Brandon. I don't know. Engineer.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh no, that's even harder than the first question. My least favorite word. I don't know. Is this a cliche to say failure? I don't like
However you
failure.
feel.
That's what I'm gonna pick.
What turns you on?
What turns me on? Wow, that's a question. I would say, what's the word that I'm thinking of? I'm totally having like a blank right now. Let's just say, someone who's like a A-type personality, go-getter, type of mentality, to take the world by storm and all that. I don't know. That's the best way I could phrase it right now. I'm bad at this.
And what turns you off?
I would say the complete opposite, right? Lack of motivation or drive. I think is the word I was thinking of. Someone who's not driven, or me myself not being driven or inspired by something.
What sound or noise do you love?
Again, would it be a cliche to say a lightsaber ignition? I'll go with that.
I think it's a beautiful answer. What sound or noise do you hate?
Sound or noise that I hate. What's maybe like an alarm sound going off in my ear, something like that. I could do without that.
What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, my favorite curse word. I've been known to use many in my day. I try to avoid saying them on camera, so I will say, the F word, as versatile as it may be.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
I've always kind of, joked around. I am a big Jurassic Park fan. I'm always like, should I just drop everything and go to school again and become a paleontologist and dig up dinosaur bones? So let's go with that. Paleontology.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
What profession would I not like to attempt? I would say, what's something that I'm really bad at? I immediately think to like science. Like chemistry was always the science that I struggled with the most, even though I really admire chemistry in general, but it's not for me in terms of practicing it and being like a chemist or something like that. I don't think I could do that.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, wow. What would I like to hear God say? I would like this is so stupid. Yeah, I would like him to tell me that I'm no longer gluten free and I can have all the cookies that I want.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and good luck not only in the Schmoedown, but in your life, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Be sure to check out Speaking of Schmoedown, a sports talk show devoted to the movie trivia. Schmoedown airs Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Jcast Network.